Hello, I am Alfred Benedict Rizalo from BSB2. My dear co-presenter to our instructor, Ms. Josephine Libatique. Welcome to our presentation. We will be the main presenters to discuss the sustainable development. Please fasten your seatbelt as to listen and learn to our discussion for today.
I am Alin Jude O. Peralta from BSHM2.
I'm Christian Josh R. Opeñano from BSBA 2.
I am Terence Melchor B. Mendoza from BSHM2.
I am Joshua G. Galvez from BSHM2.
I am Joel Sining from BSHM1.
Okay, before we start, let me give you some introductions on how this gonna work. We will be answering the following questions to be followed to discuss Mr. Peralta, Mr. Opeñano, Mr. Mendoza, Mr. Galvez, and last but not the least, Mr. Sining. In this first question, how does climate change affect food availability, food accessibility, food utilization, and system stability, and impact on how health, livelihood assets, food production and distribution channels, as well as changing purchasing power and market flows? Climate change is expected to affect all of the components that influence food security, availability, access, stability, and utilization. The overall, the overall availability of food is affected by changes in agricultural yields as well as changes in arable land. Changes in food productions together with other factors could impact food prices, which would affect the ability of poor households to access food markets and could reduce dietary. Decreased water availability and quality in some areas could result in increased health and sanitation problems, such as diarrheal disease, which is together with the changes in vector-borne disease patterns, has the potential to increase malnutrition and negatively affect food utilization. Food accessibility. Climate change could increase the prices of major crops in some regions. For the most vulnerable people, lower agricultural outputs would also mean lower income. Under these conditions, the poorest people, who already use most of this income on food, would have to sacrifice additional income to meet their nutritional requirements. Extreme weather affects disrupt the stability of food supply as well as people's livelihood. Increase in extreme weather, such as floods and drought, as a result of climate change, would exacerbate this trend and could have negative impact on livelihood that depend on climate-sensitive activities such as rain-fed agriculture and livelihood stock rearing. And next reporter is Alan Peralta.
Food security dimensions. First, we have availability, sufficient quality of food for consumptions, and the consequences of climate change are reduced agricultural productions in some areas locally, especially tropical latitudes, food affects dietary diversity. Change in the sustainability of land for crops productions, changes in precipitation patterns would affect the sustainability of rain-fed agriculture in some areas. Increases in temperatures would lead to longer growing seasons in temperate regions and reduce frost damage. CO2 fertilizations would increase yields for those crops with the physiology to benefits from CO2 enrichment. And the second one is access, ability to obtain food regularly through own productions or purchase. And the and consequences of climate change are lower yields in some areas would result in higher food price, low loss of incomes due to the potential increase in damage to agricultural productions, stability, risk of losing access to the resources required to resume foods. consequences of climate change, instability of food supplies due to an increase in extreme events, instability incomes from agriculture, utilization, quality and safety of food, including nutrition's aspect. And the consequences of climate change are food security and health impacts includes increased malnutrition, ability to utilize food might decrease where changes in climate increase diseases, impact on food safety due to change in pe- pests and water pollution. And the next reporter will be Mr. Opiniano.
Projections suggest that the number of people at risk of hunger will increase by 10 to 20% by 2050 due to climate change, with 65% of this population in sub-Saharan Africa. The number of malnourished children could increase by up to 21% or 24 million children, with the majority being in Africa. And the next reporter is Terence Mendoza.
Impacts on human health, livelihood, assets, food production and distribution channels, as well as changing purchasing power and market flows. Climate change and health. Some scientists argue that climate change is the biggest global health threat of the 21st century, and it is already contributing to the global burden of disease and premature death. Important future trends for human health include an increase in the number of people suffering from death, disease, and injury from heat waves, floods, storms, fires, and droughts. Change in the range of infectious diseases, vectors, and an increase in the burden of diarrhea diseases. Climate change impacts on health eventually both increase nutritional needs and reduce the absorption of nutrients and their utilizations by the body. And the next reporter will be Mr. Galvez.
Impact on human health, livelihood assets, food production, and distribution channels, as well as changing purchasing power and market flows. Floods can destroy crops, livelihood assets, and agricultural land. In the context of food security, heavy rainfall leading to flooding can destroy entire crops over wide areas, as well as devastating food stores, assets such as farming equipment and agricultural land due to sedimentation, fallen and beds in 2000. Further studies on the impacts of current climate variability in the United Kingdom, Kettlewell at 1999 showed that heavy rainfall in August can be linked to lower grain quality due to fungal infections. The next reporter will be Mr. Sini.
Climate change affects food production in complex ways. Direct impacts include changes in agroecological conditions. Indirect impacts include changes in economic growth and distribution of incomes, which in turn affect demand for agricultural produce. Empirical evidence suggests that increase in temperature in the period 1980 to 2008 have already resulted in average global maize and wheat yields reduction of 3.8 and 5.5 respectively. Compared to a non-climate scenario, to date, climate trends have been largely offset by gains derived from technology, carbon dioxide, fertilization, and other factors. Future changes in climate patterns coupled with population dynamics could result in higher vulnerability.
Okay, that was well said, and all your reports are correct. And let me congratulate you guys for your cooperation, time, and for the communication to us. Good day to us. Thank you.